Oh, this is where two guys against AI talk about power.
Yeah, the ones that cost us so much money. Oh, so let me get this right, all right? In order to have this AI, I now got to live in a 90-degree house because I got to turn my thermostat up and I can't have air conditioning because it would pull off the power grid. I get nasty grams from my power company now on my power usage. Why unfiltered power goes to the
Unrestricted power. Yeah.
The same amount you might need for a small country to run chatbots.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the chat bar.
3 Mile Islands, for those of us who lived through the 3 Mile Island crisis, we're going to turn that sucker back on.
Well, it's just amazing how all of a sudden natural gas is attractive again, and a total realignment of our goals.
Is this why I'm selling my house just to escape?
Well, it's the energy competition. Yeah, it's funny. I go back when I first talked to the chatbot in the beginning, and of course here we go with my, but I'm still two guys against AI. What we're going to be is in competition with AI, like it or not, and we could talk about all these data centers. Oh, well, trivialize it and say, well, it's chatbots. It's like, that's not what it is. It's the surveillance world that we're talking about. We're talking about data centers that are going to have every little detail about you available in an instant. I mean, it's already to the point that, like, if you're pulled over by an officer, he already knows whether or not you're insured. He knows whether or not you got current registration. He knows whether you have a record. He knows if you have a carry permit. He knows all of that. It's all right there. It's there right now. We are just increasing the volume of data that's being gathered about everybody, which is going to do nothing to make your life easier because you're going to get corralled into a very, very narrow
all right.
thing.
So, let me before we jump off on that again.
Yeah, again.
We just
still.
But here's the dilemma: we don't have the infrastructure for this stuff.
Well, that's one of the interesting things. I know it's.
It just doesn't exist.
After I left Florida, and now Pennsylvania in particular is one of the areas that they're looking at because it's pretty energy rich, and the siting is actually being done predominantly against smaller communities that don't have the wherewithal to be able to put up a good fight. We saw the same thing. Builders Remedy in New Jersey, the developers actually would come in and choose to subdivide an area, put a large development in a rural community that would not be able to muster up the money to pay one attorney, let alone hire a bank of them, and then
that's what you do. You just dump your data dump on a community like that,
yep.
And you take up all their space and their planning board, zoning board,
yep,
or whatever they have, and you milk that community until their legal fees make them say yes.
Yes. So when that's one strategy is to take in, get a relatively weak community, and I say that just in a resource scenario, because like there's a lot of unincorporated towns or small towns that maybe have a township attorney who's part-time, a part-time.
Well, and last week he was worried about the Bush sightline of somebody's convenience store, and now he's got to deal with mega giants with corporate lawyers out the wazoo.
A bunch of black SUVs drive in at the meeting, and the next thing you know, they're outclassed. So what's happened, and this is really an area where I think that there are discussions legislatively, and it comes right back to this. We have to start to take a look at the regulatory scenario of this. One is infrastructure. Okay, I live in a rural area. You cite something in a rural area. Now all of a sudden they're going to have to run lines to it. Should my power bill go up because they have to build infrastructure now to feed the small city that's just in a warehouse? That's one thing. Now I think, and I have caught wind of some bills that are out there saying, okay, you want to cite one, the first thing you have to do is you have to work out your own infrastructure, which means power generation and transmission capability that you're going to pay for. And we've done this in terms of like with developments. I know when I was on the planning board in the past.
A lot of windmills, though.
Well, that's true. But what you end up with is that there's impact fees that okay, you want to do this, despite the fact that people don't necessarily want to have. I mean, they fought warehouses. It makes me wonder, with all these warehouses that were built, were they just potential housing sites? Because there's way too many. I can't believe that Amazon's got that many places that they have to take and do things. Yet, we've got these huge buildings, that are thousands of feet long with
6 employees in them.
6 employees in. So what's gonna go in there? I got a hunch it's not going to be inventory, to make sure that you get your goods delivered by a robot. But now the problem that they have, okay, these things are situated there, and now they're going to need a power cable that's the size of the Lincoln Tunnel to feed it, and it's not there. And not just that, what are you going to hook the power cable to once you do put it into? Because there's no generation capacity. I have watched my power bill go up in Pennsylvania, over years, and then we've had a place in the Poconos for a long time, and it's every 5%, 10%, 15%, 5%, over and over again, because the increased electrical demand is more than the system can handle. So the infrastructure costs are part of it, but as we look at the availability of energy and this new sudden draw, we're in direct competition. So when people say, "Oh, well, why are you opposed to data centers?" Well, forget the privacy aspect of it. This translates into real dollars and cents for every family.
I mean, it's a basic supply and demand. If you put that much demand on a system that, number one, can't handle that much demand, it's going to force your supply down because you're not building the supply side up.
Right.
So it's going to affect your pricing.
For sure.
And not in a positive way for most Americans.
And solar and windmills.
They produce nothing.
Well, they are not going to be able to provide the 24/7 power necessary to feed these things.
They're going to run your television. They're not running something like this.
Yep. And this seems to be the dirty little secret.
How does this fit into the green energy?
I don't know. I missed that. I'm waiting for Al Gore to tell me. He was responsible for this because didn't he create the internet?
I believe he did.
So he created the internet and then pushed the green agenda, and then now his two major things collide. I wonder where he's at on that now.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the amount of silence on these things.
Well,
there's and I'm not
was
talking.
it
I'm not talking about
truth.
I'm not.
That's what it is.
It's very inconvenient now. I'm not talking about the there isn't anybody, because there's regular people out there going to local municipal meetings and trying to stop these things from happening, or at least try to get it regulated to a point of normalcy or something. But look, there's that old saying, you can't fight City Hall. Well, yeah, or Ben Franklin's don't argue with somebody who buys their ink by the barrel. Yeah, when you see this kind of resources dumped into something, and look, our entire society is doing it. We have a stock market at all-time highs that is basically based on 7 companies at this point, and maybe a few others that are fulfillment kind of. How do you stop it? I don't think you can.
Well, I think the first thing is that we have currently a lot of states in an effort, we're right back to the arms race again, quote unquote, because, they don't want to be behind when this new technological boom comes. Although, excuse me, but where are the jobs? So it's going to be a data center, so you're going to have a few maintenance people.
Oh, there's no jobs.
There's no jobs.
It's like the warehouse.
There's
no jobs.
There's no jobs. Huge infrastructure costs. Not to mention the fact, just a total redefinition of whatever may be there. If we're talking about going to rural areas, take your beautiful rural vista. It is now covered with a huge warehouse that also sucks the juice out of everybody's homes. It's a tremendous change, and this is the other side of this. Is everybody thinks, oh well, this is going to be just a big benefit to us. This stuff doesn't run for nothing.
Look, I'm a believer in nuclear power. Always have been.
I have to too.
But I also know that where are you going to put all these plants because of the NIMBY factor?
Well, I think you're seeing NIMBY to a degree now.
Which is not in my backyard for anybody who's not
that's
familiar.
true. But then, the other part is that a lot of the state legislators and executive offices of the states, have fast-tracked permits for data centers, which, by the way, when we think about this, let's look at the scope of these data centers, and I've seen some maps as to how many there are. Why do we need all of these data centers? If we're not talking about a case for chatbots here. Why do we have to have a decentralized?
Well, every one of these companies have to have their own data center.
Well, they have
the control over certain information, right?
That's
Because
true.
it's not a shared thing. I noticed.
Well,
It's not like we're building. It's not like the power plant that we're sharing. The data centers are private.
Well, some of them are, but in most cases, and this is where the surveillance component comes in. These are private entities that are building these. They have dramatic amounts of information that is at the disposal that's ready to be marketed to government, for instance, if you wish. So then where does the violation of the Fourth Amendment start to come into the picture? Because we're being surveilled constantly, which was that right to privacy was one of the foundations of the creation of the United States government. And here we are now, we're ending up with private entities are gathering vast amounts of information, whether it be Google or any other myriad of companies, and then selling it to the highest bidder for whatever the purpose would be. One, which is government, and another, which is insurance companies. You're ending up where when I moved, I had to go out and go for insurance. Now, this is amazing. My wife gets a letter back from one of the insurers, only one, and said that LexisNexis had something negative and that affected impacted our prices to you. That's funny. None of the others did that. So we're ending up with this subjective, mysterious category that supposedly is used against you. That's a scary thought. We're talking about private entities that are able to affect.
That's going to continue.
And they're gathering all this data up, and providing information to insurance companies that's outside of your credit score based upon maybe nebulous things. We don't even know what the criteria is. But what we also do know is that they are gathering information about you everywhere. Your phone calls, where you go, what you look at online, what you may post. Everything is all being created to be this.
Oh, there's no privacy.
None at all.
Forget that.
And that can't happen.
If you've searched anything on the internet that you wouldn't want your neighbor to know, they're going to know.
If it's going to get worse, it is going to get worse when you have a data center the size of a football field at every corner.
Well, I mean, look, we know we've both lived in rural areas, so we're familiar with this. The power infrastructure there has been broken for years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these places, the trees have overgrown wires, the transformers are out of date. It's multi-millions because of the bureaucracy and regulatory factors to even fix the things. They're not going to fix them, but somehow these things are going to get powered. It's going to strain the system to the point of breakage. Who's going to win? Who's going to have power? Who's not? So this is like a conspiracy series we're doing here. You got the seeds, you got the water, now you got the energy.
Well, exactly. But let's go back to the transmission component, because I think that we look at energy generation. Yeah, okay, you use X number of kilowatts, that's fine, but it has to get to you.
Oh yeah.
And I look on my power bill and there's an energy transportation charge.
Yeah, it's going to go up.
It's going to go up, but the thing is it's not going to create that little thread that you have for a line feeding to your house. It's going to be going in for massive. I think one of the great directions that we're looking at right now from a legislative component is, you want to do this, you better come up with on-site power, and you better come up with a way to feed it. And if you don't have that, you can't site there. And stop looking
I'm going to be a little Bernie Sanders-esque or a little Sarah Palin here and say, the people in Alaska get paid by the energy companies. I know the institutions in Wyoming get funded by oil.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Why aren't we getting all free power if we're going to build out this power?
Oh, don't worry, because when AI takes over, they're going to take care of everything for you.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
Well,
everything.
if AI was that smart, it would figure out how to work out a wall outlet.
So, I think that, we're, and again, everything's, a transition thing. And, you know what the answer is? Dilithium crystals. That's what it is. Scotty talks about them. Captain, the dilithium crystals. That's the answer. But we don't have that yet. And right now, we're looking at massive power amounts. I've seen projections of how many millions of megawatts of power are projected with the building of these new data centers across the country, and it's staggering. And are we actually willing to say, everybody says, oh, well, we drive cars and you have air conditioning and things like that. They're just power pigs. It's not a useful use of energy.
I don't know. So my power company sends me a letter and compares me to my neighbor now.
Yeah.
Or a house like mine. And says you were a bad boy this month. Or you were a good boy. We're happy with you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because I know they're making money off me. So I'm freaked out by the whole thing. Like all of a sudden now I got to read my comparison to my neighbor on power usage. Well, I don't, look, I'm downsizing my house. It's too big for once my children moved out. But in all honesty, how do you compare one house to another depending on the number of people who live in there? They built these houses. I mean, and here's the other thing. How is this next generation going to afford a house? Because, with the rising mortgage rates, which again I think are normalizing because there never should have been 0% mortgage rates and 2%. Like we never had that in our world. Those of us who even remember the 70s.
Don't get me going.
16, 17. All right, I'm not going to. But you got this. Now you got your power is X amount. How does this work when you don't even have a job? It's like no one's stopping and saying, whoa. This doesn't structurally work. Not only this infrastructure, but our economic infrastructure, our political infrastructure, our safety infrastructure. This is what we got to slow this down for a second.
So what is the tangible thing from a standpoint of tangible produced product that all these data centers are going to provide?
Well, they're going to help lawyers write legal briefs better.
That's fine, but when I look at it,
not if you get them.
So now I'm told, and look, we've seen changed priorities. I live in a total electric home. That was common in the 80s. The heat is convective, heat units, which is old stuff, which I'm working towards gradually addressing, but the competition for the energy is like me being able to have some heat, less important than us being able to have the energy to feed a data center. We're going to get to a point to where
here's you're going to be lucky. You want to know where you're going to be lucky?
Why am I going to be lucky?
Because when you're freezing cold,
yeah,
and you're eating cold food because you can't afford to cook it anymore.
All right.
You're going to be able to ask ChatGPT to give you some virtual warmth.
Well, there you go. That's true. But as we go forward, and I think that people have to take a look at these priorities, and not to mention the fact Larry Fink just said, these pension funds paying for all this billions and billions of dollars of data capacity that is ultimately going to become obsolete, just like any other technology, and then we're going to need more data capacity. It's coming from pension funds and savers. That's where the money's coming from. It's a scary thought. Well, we're paying for this, and
we're paying for our own misery.
We are, and as the competition for electricity increases, and we see more and more of it being diverted to these purposes, almost like a golden calf, if you wish. At some point, there is going to be a competition for that energy where we're going to have to take a look at it. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't get on our game, we're going to be way behind on this. And now is the time to start to ask these questions in terms of why is this being allowed to be built without it having its own power and its own infrastructure to make it happen? Not to mention the fact they're hideous, or what they may want to do with all this data, because it's amazing how we survive without data. Did you ever think about that?
Hell, I survived without cell phones. And I was actually happier then.
I'll tell you, it's just it's geometrically, exponentially expanding. So I mean, what's it going to be
Well,
eventually?
it's so far out of the box and I think it's because of the investment. Here's what I think. And I've said this before, and I take some hope in this, and some misery.
Okay.
I truly believe, and we're in June at this point when we're taping this one. In a week, you're going to have that SpaceX IPO. Space being the worst investment of all time, going to be the biggest one of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to crash everything once people cashed it in. I said originally November when one of our shows before. Right now I'm looking at December through March. Once the original investors cash out, this stuff's crashing down.
Well, it's true.
It's going to crash it down.
Well, you can see
It's so bubbled.
they're liquidating Bitcoin. I don't know if you've been watching Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin has gradually been going down.
Down below its 200 week average right now.
So it continues to drop. Well, that's because everybody's cashing in because they're going to jump in on the next pyramid scheme, which is going to be
FOMO.
SpaceX.
This is all FOMO.
So
don't buy space. Look it up.
So anyway,
One profitable part, Starlink. That's it. The rest of it's not profitable.
And we're not. We're also looking at all of this data. So
not that I'm giving financial
and
advice. I'm
I
just giving
don't know-
myself advice.
I don't know where the return is on this, other than the fact to be able to control people.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't produce, does it?
Because we're investing a tremendous amount of money. Somebody's
What does
investing
it
a tremendous.
produce?
What does it produce? That's where I was going. What's the tangible thing that we get for this? So it's going to take all of our electricity. It's going to collect all this data. What's it going to do with the data other than to build a dossier on each of us individually?
Within minutes.
Yes.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everybody.
This is not financial advice. Don't listen to us on that kind of thing. All right? We just speculate. We're two curmudgeons.
But you can like us anyway.
And subscribe.